Looping back a little bit on VC as well, I've noticed a lot of individuals are, and me specifically as well, I'm always one of these. The way I think about the VC ecosystem is a lot of times it's a kind of a spray and pray approach, right? It's a quantity game a little bit. I understand that small checks and a lot, and then hopefully out of those, about 80% won't produce anything. 20% obviously will offset the VC industry and so forth. And so one of the things I found interesting is what I always love to do is more of a debt to equity play, mainly because that
Hmm.
mitigates the risk. Definitely if it's like pre-rev or so forth. But if they're revenue positive, then I can do proper due diligence and underwriting for both not only the team, but also kind of the company and the projections. But also at Series A, which I always found interesting because now you also have a lot of top line revenue, you have momentum, you have a team established, and there's just a better projections and so forth mitigating if I'm going to deploy capital for an equity play. And
Hmm.
what I've noticed is I think what's interesting is a lot of family offices and high net worth individuals, it's like they still want to play in the VC world, but it's like they're just being more what's the word, more strategic and tactical and saying, okay, hey, what are we going to do to mitigate that risk to ensure that we're not structuring. I've also noticed where they're doing a lot of co-investing to make sure and say,
Hmm.
hey, you know what, instead of going out there and doing the in the fund approach, I'm going to take more of a control aspect on it. And like you just mentioned as well earlier on in this conversation, where they're taking an operational role, definitely if you
Hmm.
have the in-house ability and so forth. What are you noticing as well? Just making sure like they still do want to play in it, but they're just kind of their tactic and their strategy around the VC world specifically is adjusting and changing and evolving.
It is. It is. No, it absolutely is, Christian. It is. It has been evolving, and of course, it really depends, right, on the circumstances of that ultimate investor, the LP, the family offices. Like, where do their strengths lie,
Mhm.
right? Is it being more involved? Is it being involved in some sort of tactical way? I mean, and obviously, what makes late stage venture quite different than early stage venture is the level of involvement you might have with the company, simply because they say, listen, at the end of the day, some of these later stage companies are such well oiled, fairly sizable machines that it's like you don't want to be too intrusive. You want to be helpful, but you want to be there for them for the right opportunities. In the earlier stage, you definitely have that opportunity to roll your sleeves up and get much more involved. And so I think I definitely am seeing that it's all this kind of approach in terms of how many companies you're investing in your portfolio on an ongoing basis. The bigger the fund, the more capital they have to deploy, the more they might be likely to take more of a spray and pray approach versus those of us who might have more concentrated smaller funds where we take a more dedicated, shorter, I would say, shorter, for horizon towards an exit. And we're looking to deploy capital maybe slightly more slowly than those of us who have the bigger massive funds that come in with the billions of dollars behind them and need to take really small positions across the board for diversification. So it really is a question of, if you're an LP, if you're a family office and you're evaluating, is saying what level of involvement, right, as you said, are these venture managers going to have with the company? So therefore, what level of story and relationship are they going to have with the underlying issuer? And then making that decision of what your comfortability is with that relationship on an ongoing basis. And is it a value add relationship between the issuer and that private investor? And it's something we're very, very, very sincere about at MVP. So I think, that is something that every LP should be questioning today, as you said. Being more tactical absolutely makes sense. And overall, just making sure that you have the trust of the private company to be able to lean on you in times of good and times of bad. And if they really need something, feel comfortable enough to reach out to you as an investor and say, hey, listen, we got something going on. We're in a pinch. We need your help. So pretty big, level of relationship diligence you could really do as an LP.
And you keep coming back to this main word, and I love what you're saying, relationship, right? In this industry, it's a matter
Hmm.
of really working with the right people that know what the hell they're doing and be able to
Hmm.
facilitate amazing relationship. Because, like you just mentioned, every deal, depending upon obviously what equity vertical you are focusing on, whether it's VC, PE, or whether it's the secondary market pre-IPO companies, you got to make sure that you're working with individuals that know how to navigate that because every situation is very contextual.